Hello, and welcome to the 2018 Texas A&M Student Athlete Wellness Talk. I decided that the TED Talk form will be best suited for this presentation because of how seamlessly it's able to flow and for its entertainment value. TED Talks are given by experts in particular fields about a wide range of topics given in many locations around the world. And today is the same with a small difference. Same exotic location here in lovely College Station, Texas. This time the speaker on paper wouldn't be labeled an expert, but with a tremendous amount of life experience and as a former dual sport athlete, I am well informed about what is lacking in collegiate athletics for athletes. A practice plan is what is used to organize every facet of football practice. What seems to just flow for players out on the field is meticulously discussed and well thought out by coaches throughout a number of meetings throughout the day. And by everything, I do mean everything. From individual drills to the direction that the offense or defense will be going during a certain period to where the coaches want cameras placed for drills. There is nothing that doesn't get planned and put on the practice plan. And today for my talk, I decided to do one as well. So today, in our second period, we will discuss knowledge, skills, attitude, and athlete disposition. In period 3, we'll discuss some pitfalls that athletes fall into. In period 4, we will go into mental health and its significance. In period 5, we will talk about athletes getting involved in extracurriculars outside of the particular sport. Period 6, we will take a simulated break like athletes do at practice because they have to take a water break. And periods 7 and 8 is dealing with athletes in adverse situations. Period 9, we will discuss PTSD and how it affects them. And in period 10, that'll be our summary period. To be a successful student athlete, there are a few characteristics that you have to find the right balance of in order to better serve you and your aspirations of becoming a more well-rounded individual. Possessing the knowledge, having the right attitude, acquiring the proper skills throughout your college career are paramount in order to achieve the ultimate goal of walking across that stage with your diploma in hand. And for a small added bonus, we'll discuss how you have to sprinkle in a little disposition in order to assist you throughout your process. We'll discuss each of these traits more in depth. Knowledge. Webster's defined knowledge as facts, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education, the theatrical or practical understanding of a subject. The human brain is constantly processing the multitude of information that surrounds us in our everyday lives, and what we do with that information is up to each individual. Take this presentation, for example. Some of you are going to retain the information that your brain deems useful, process it, and use it to shape some actions in your future. Some may see a GIF on this slide, and your brain will recall that video that the GIF came from, and you only think about that video and completely miss the message. Like I stated, the brain is always working. It can either be an enhancement or it can be a hindrance. Skills. The dictionary defines skills as the ability to do something very well. Expertise. Skills are something that can be acquired. They can be taught over a period of time. As student athletes, you're working every day to improve to make yourself a more complete player. Whatever your shortcomings, you find a way to improve upon them so that you can maximize your abilities to get that ultimate playing time and help your team win. Your attitude. Attitude is a settled way of thinking or feeling about someone or something, typically one that is reflected in a person's behavior. Your attitude helps shape how you do things on a daily basis. You may have heard the age-old adage that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. Disposition. A person's inherent interests, qualities of mind and character. Physical attributes stand out when most people interact with student athletes because of their sheer size. They are oftentimes much longer than the average individual. People will remember your physical stature, but what will stick with them longer is your character, how you treat them, or how they see you treating others. Your non-physical traits are what gets etched in people's memories. If you're a fan of TV show game shows like I am, and you see this slide, It may remind you of a particular show that pits two families against each other, which is my favorite show, Family Feud. And I decided that I wanted to bring a little piece of my favorite show along to this presentation. So I decided that we are going to play the best game ever. We researched dozens of websites and found out that these top 3 answers for the reasons that collegiate athletes don't complete their eligibility. And the top 3 answers on the board are women, controlled substances, and scholastic integrity. In society, there are numerous amounts of opportunities for individuals to get into activities that can develop and achieve their ultimate goals, regardless of their athlete or not. The potential pitfalls for athletes are exponentially greater, more readily accessible, and have a higher likelihood of being successful. Nevertheless, women, whether it's sexual assault, domestic violence, or any situation where a woman feels unsafe, is an ongoing learning process with not just athletes, but with people in general. The number 2 answer, controlled substances, whether it be alcohol, marijuana, pills, or other hallucinogenic substances. Drugs and the use of them have led to the downfall of many an individual. Scholastic integrity. Here at Texas A&M, there's a mantra that an Aggie doesn't lie to you to steal, nor tolerate those who do. With the busy schedules that athletes have, it is easy to give into the temptation of allowing someone else to do your coursework for you. Reuben Foster, first-round draft pick of the San Francisco 49ers, was in a relationship with an Alyssa Ennis. He is accused of punching his ex-girlfriend in the head 8 to 10 times and dragging her out of the house, as well as making terroristic threats. Law enforcement officers responded to a distress call by Ennis and arrested Foster at the scene. He faced 3 felonies and, if convicted, was looking at 11 years in prison. He was immediately indefinitely suspended by the 49ers and chastised by domestic violence groups when the news broke. He posted a $75,000 bond and was released. The result? All charges were dropped because Ennis later testified that she made the whole thing up and wanted to get back at Foster for breaking up with her. Ennis was involved in a physical altercation of the previous day with an individual completely unrelated to Foster and suffered visible marks because of that altercation. The altercation prompted Foster to end the relationship with Ennis. Ennis later used those marks from the altercation previously to say that Foster had placed his hands on her. Ennis was upset at the fact that Foster broke things off with her and stated that in court. Ennis stole over $10,000 cash and jewelry from Foster and still has not returned any of that property. Ennis issued an apology, but no legal action was taken upon her. Joe Mixon, second-round draft pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, was caught on camera striking a woman in the face that resulted in her breaking bones in her face after falling. Was suspended for a season of athletic competition when the video surfaced after he had already served suspension issued by the team before the video had become public. He was not allowed to participate in the bowl game after the video came out. The video showed a verbal altercation between Mixon and Amelia Molitor at a Norman, Oklahoma establishment. The video showed Molitor appear to say something, which witnesses later said was a racial slur. Mixon got in her face and then walked away. Molitor responded by following, grabbing, and striking Mixon twice. Mixon then responded by hitting her once. Molitor fell on the table and then to the ground, resulting in 4 broken bones in her face. The video looked extremely brutal, but nobody said anything about the woman striking Mixon. All the narrative was on his reaction. What is the moral of the story? It is never okay to hit a woman, regardless of the situation. Even if in your mind it seems warranted, fight that urge and remove yourself from the situation. The result of that whole altercation ended up in a non-disclosure agreement between both parties, and a joint statement was released. Molitor stated that, "I'm happy we were able to bring the lawsuit to an end. Joe and I were able to meet privately with our attorney and talk about our experiences from that night. I'm encouraged that we will both be able to move forward from here with our lives." So even though Mixon was quote-unquote retaliating for getting struck. The fact that he decided to put his hands on women resulted in a drop in his draft stock because he was a potential first-round draft pick, a loss of a season of competition, and he will forever have to live with that video of him committing that crime being out for public to see. Aldon Smith, the number 7 overall pick of the San Francisco 49ers in the 2011 NFL Draft from the University of Missouri. He signed a rookie deal that was worth $21 million over 3 years and gave him a $7 million signing bonus. Smith was a great talent. In 2012, he led the league with 19.5 sacks and was setting himself up for a very lucrative contract extension. But then came a troubled timeline of unfortunate events. In 2012, he was arrested for a DUI during the offseason. In 2013, he was arrested again for a DUI and marijuana possession. In 2014, he was suspended 9 games for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy and personal conduct. Later on in 2014, he was sentenced to 24 days in jail in order to serve 3 years of probation and complete 235 hours of community service during his probation period. He wasn't allowed to drink any alcohol or even to go into a liquor store. In 2015, he was charged with another DUI, a hit and run, property damage, and vandalism. Later that year, he was suspended by the NFL for an entire season. In 2016, he was caught on camera smoking marijuana. And later in that year, he was sued by the 49ers in order to pay back $1.3 million for the games that he missed and was ultimately suspended by the league indefinitely and still to this day is. All of those events cost him a lot of potential revenue. His sack total in 2012, paired with another 10-sack season, had him poised for a big money contract. His legal troubles were a cause for concern. He was traded from the Niners to the Raiders in 2014, and he sat out the entire 2015 season, and he had signed a 1-year deal worth $4 million. But that number would only be hit if he achieved all the personal performance incentives that was in the contract. Having a 10-sack season, no positive drug tests, mandatory Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, and playing 70% of the team's total defensive sacks. But since he was suspended that year, he never got to reach any of those totals. The money that he did receive from that potential $4 million was $650,000. Had Smith not gotten in trouble, 49 officials were willing to assign him to a 4-year, $60 million extension that had included $32 million guaranteed, with a $22 million signing bonus. So as soon as he would sign that contract, he was due $22 million from the San Francisco 49ers organization. And $10 million, the rest of the $10 million would have been added to the length of his contract. Marijuana is legal in the state of California, and it's treated the same way as alcohol inside of a vehicle. Recreational use of marijuana is allowed by law by the state, but the NFL has a policy against it. So though Smith technically broke no laws for having a drug, he violated policies from his employer, and violating those policies cost him millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. Tyrann Mathieu was a defensive back from LSU. He won the Chuck Bednarik Award for the best defensive player in the nation, was a 2-time All-American, and was a Heisman finalist. He was a projected first-round draft pick going into his junior season, but he had failed multiple drug tests and got kicked off the team for his entire junior season. During this time, he checked himself into rehab for his serious marijuana addiction, and he had to either transfer or enter the NFL draft. He chose to enter the draft and was selected in the 3rd round and signed a 2-year, $1.4 million contract. Had he played his junior year and ended up a first-round draft pick like many people had predicted him to be, he could have signed a 3-year deal worth over $20 million, and of that $20 million, at least 10 of it would have been guaranteed. 3 failed drug tests cost him over $10 million in guaranteed money. To silently continue to smoke, NFL teams flagged him, and his draft stock fell because of it. Most football players dream of playing in the NFL one day. Your college film is your resume. You can't have film if you're not on the field. Your choices have ramifications down the line, so be smart in what you do. Going to our number 3 answer, scholastic integrity. Take the University of Missouri, for example. In 2016, an academic tutor wrote in a statement where she admitted to improperly assisting student athletes. Later that year, the NCAA and the University of Missouri launched an investigation about the allegations. Of that investigation, in 2017, the defensive lineman A.J. Logan was suspended 6 games for academic fraud, and the investigation is continually going on within the academic department at the University of Missouri. The tutor, Yolanda Kumar, said in a statement that she was groomed to aid football players and basketball players more than other athletes. So in this case, personal integrity is something that you personally have to possess, and your steadfastness has to be stronger than the circumstances that surround you. Sometimes individuals who have good intentions, like tutors, like academic advisors, take ill-advised ways and overstep boundaries that can jeopardize your opportunity to play. Don't allow someone else trying to cut corners jeopardize you and your future. Continuing with scholastic integrity, take the University of Notre Dame. In 2011 to 2013, an athletic trainer completed parts or whole assignments for football players for over 18 courses. In 2015, an investigation was launched by the NCAA over the allegations. In 2016, a ruling was handed down that since the team competed with players who were deemed ineligible, the team had to vacate 21 wins from the games that those athletes participated in. The wins from the 12-0 season that resulted in Notre Dame being in the national championship game were vacated, and the record no longer stands. A college football team has well over 110 members. And since 6 members of that unit at Notre Dame decided that they wanted to try and cheat the system, they cost their teammates a place in college football history books and having an undefeated season. Just think about all the hard work, all the effort and sacrifice that you and your teammates make every day, fighting, clawing to attain a perfect record. And after all that effort, you're rewarded with a perfect season, fairy tale, only to find out that it was all for nothing, and it will forever be tainted because of the selfish actions of a few teammates. All right, as we move on to period 4 of our practice here, we're going to discuss mental health and its importance, and how its lack of emphasis can affect athletes that we as coaches and athletic department members are in charge of managing. I'm also going to propose a method that how we can better serve our athletes. Take, for example, Washington State quarterback Tyler Helsinki. He started the 2017 Holiday Bowl versus Michigan State and was a projected future quarterback of the program. He was found in this apartment July 2018 with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Just after he had came off that start in the Holiday Bowl, he was described as caring, fun-loving, supportive, competitive, and a brother by all of his teammates. On the outside, he had it all together. Future quarterback going into the next season, but clearly there was something beneath the surface that teammates, coaches, parents, and even his girlfriend missed as far as him being mentally healthy. In an interview, his teammates discussed how on the day before he committed suicide, he went shooting with some of his teammates, which is out of the norm for him. While there, he learned basic gun handling techniques and how to properly shoot, even though he didn't shoot well, they said. On the day of the incident, Tyler went about his normal routine and nothing seemed out of ordinary for those around him, until he didn't show up for the team workout that he scheduled. Teammates became worried and started to search for him. They went to his apartment, and there was no sign of him. He stopped sharing his location with his girlfriend, and his phone was going straight to voicemail. Teammates then went to his old apartment complex where they saw his car parked in the back. They kicked in his front door, searched the apartment, and eventually found him in his room with a gunshot wound. Next, we will discuss Jay Guillermo, starting center and captain on Clemson's national championship winning team. He was a projected 5th to 7th round NFL draft pick, and he was selected all ACC 2 times in a row. His head coach was quoted as saying, "I've never recruited a guy more committed and more passionate about the game of football than Jay Guillermo." Guillermo stated that he didn't know who he was outside of being an athlete and lost a sense of personal identity, causing confusion that he didn't know how to deal with. Jay admitted that the thought of him taking his own life during his depression had crossed his mind several times, and after some tough discussions with the head coach, they decided it was best for Jay to leave football for the foreseeable future. Therapy sessions multiple times a week, going home and being around family, picking up old hobbies, is what ultimately led Jay back to the path of being able mentally stable enough to be able to actually miss football and want to go back. He had a couple discussions with the coaches on the staff. They formulated a timetable for him to come back, and he was welcomed back with open arms. And he successfully completed his playing career as a football player at Clemson University. So with the knowledge that we know, where do we go to help fix the issues that we have? My proposal is twofold. One, I believe that that athletic departments should hire psychologists as a resource that student athletes can use. One per 150 athletes who have nothing to do related to sport, and that will be strictly a part of the athletic department for the sole purpose of being available for student athletes. They will be required to notify coaches that the student athletes are seeing them, but not required to disclose any information shared in the meetings unless it was of dire circumstances. I want athletes to have a safe haven where they aren't looked at as an athlete, rather as a normal human being who is in search of help. We see student athletes performing at a high level in their respective sports. Seeing them in person, you notice the sheer size and oftentimes forget they're 18 to 22-year-old young adults. Regular students on campus see signs all around that advocate for therapy and mental health or things related to it. But athletes live in structured lives around their athletic responsibilities, and most of them couldn't use those on-campus resources even if they wanted to. So instead, I want to bring those resources to them. Secondly, I want to implement mandatory time away from the sport during the off season. I feel that athletes should get real time off and get away from their respective sport. Normal students get a break and are completely separated from school. Athletes may get a weekend or two every now and then. A normal person in the workforce uses paid time off to do whatever they want with. I believe student athletes should get the same. Have 168 hours, 7 days, that they can have banked away, that they can be away from their sport. The only caveat being is that it can't be used during the competition season unless in an extreme circumstance, so that they can recharge, come back, and be ready to play. We spend plenty of time to make sure that athletes' bodies are physically prepared, and we should put that same effort into ensuring that they are just as mentally fit as they are physically. Going over to period 5, more than an athlete. While on the subject of seeing athletes as individuals, I want to propose that athletes get an opportunity to join campus organizations, have a career fair for athletes, but have the same setup for campus organizations. Bring the options to the athletes. Let them gather information and let them choose if they would like to join any campus groups. With over 1,000 organizations and groups on campus, from fraternities to student groups who have movie and TV watching clubs, there is something for everybody. They just have to be exposed to it. And to make it even more convenient for the athletes here, we can have the event in the 29,000 square foot Hall of Champions, which is located right next to the door to the athletic facility, where all the student athletes go to eat their meals and have their academic study hall. Give them access and let the athletes decide what extracurriculars, if any, they want to be a part of. All right, so now's the time for our simulated break. Okay, so we're going to take our break on 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Breathe in, breathe out, get up, do a stretch. Stretch left, arms up, rotate your neck. All right, ready? Break over. Moving on to period 7 and 8, dealing with adverse situations. For example, let's take Travion Williams, Texas A&M running back, native of Houston, Texas. Family was affected severely by Hurricane Harvey. He was an All-SEC selection in 2016 and is the first freshman in school history to rush for 1,000 yards. In the month of August, football programs across the country start fall practice, a time used for athletes and coaches alike to fully immerse themselves in all things football and prepare for the upcoming season. In August of 2017, however, things were a bit out of the ordinary for residents of Southeast Texas. Hurricane Harvey made landfall and pounded the Houston area in an unprecedented fashion. A state of emergency was called, and in addition to federal rescue services, people from all over the country made their way down to the Houston area to try and aid victims of the storm. Even with all the extra aid that came, still thousands were left stranded for days because water levels were too high to be reached, which was the case for Travion and his family. He was in camp with the Texas A&M football team, and he lost contact with his family and all he knew that they were stuck in their home. He had no idea if they were living or if something had happened to where they may have physically been harmed. Days went by with no communication, and he had no idea about the status of his family. All of this was in the middle of the most grueling mental and physical period time of the year. And eventually it comes to find out that they were okay, but they had lost everything that they had possessed. With a schedule that goes from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. with minimal breaks in between, a 19-year-old was asked and expected to still perform at a high level. How does one deal with such a situation? The staff was able to get in touch with emergency crews that found the family and got them in contact with Travion so that they could ease his worries in such a troubling time. The time spent on the field was viewed as an escape from his harsh realities and life's current situation. Going through such an extreme circumstance like that makes us as coaches have to step back and see the bigger picture. Yes, we want to win games, but also we have to show that we care about the person more than the player. PTSD. No, not the disorder that many of our military service men and women come back home from combat with. I'm speaking in an athletic sense. Post-traumatic sports disorder. How do athletes cope when the lights are no longer shining and fans are no longer screaming their names? It has been said that athletes die twice. Once when they stop playing, and twice when they actually cross over into the afterlife. It can be a very traumatizing time after individual sports life is up. Some deal with it better than others, and some are just completely lost. So how do we circumvent the issue that every athlete will eventually face? I believe the answer is multi-level. First, take the traits that will ingrain you from participating in athletics and allow them to manifest in your work life. Focus, discipline, time management, production, integrity, and teamwork. Whether it be preparing for practice, game day, or just carrying yourself in a proper manner, athletes have skills that are desirable by employers. They have to just realize that it's already in them and that they can be fruitful in the job marketplace. Next, helping athletes have a vision. For the purpose of this project, I asked a room of 110 college football players, how many of them goal in life was to play in the NFL? 93 raised their hands. Of those 93, I posed a question. How many of you, if your career ended today, have any idea what you want to do with your life's career? All but 27 dropped their hands. That was a staggering visualization. The great Southern philosopher, Young Jeezy, was quoted as saying, "Dreams happen when you sleep. A vision happens when you're awake." Aiding athletes in finding their purpose and career is what all athletic departments should take pride in. Athletes seeing themselves as more than athletes, being bigger than ball. Staying woke. A vision without action is just that, a vision. Without the proper steps taken for that vision to become reality, it is a waste of time for all those involved. How do we implement the vision had by our athletes? We require that they attend career fairs, come back with information and business cards from potential employers, send follow-up emails, send thank you letters. We allow more flexibility for the attainment of internships, make accommodations at workout facilities where the internships are located so they can still maintain their athletic workout obligations. As coaches and administrators, we pride ourselves in graduating our athletes. I feel that we should shift our focus on making sure that athletes are gainfully employed once their playing days are over, in addition to making sure that they graduate. In the game of football, the last 2 minutes of a quarter, half, or the end of the game could very well determine the outcome. So I decided that it would be fitting to end this presentation in a similar fashion. So, let's go! Knowledge, skills, and disposition, and attitude. Avoid the top 3 pitfalls that have overtaken many an athlete. Become more aware of mental health and its importance with our athletes. Encourage on-campus engagement. Assist in aiding athletes during times of trouble. and taking the necessary steps to avoid PTSD. If an athletic department could adopt anything that was discussed here tonight, I believe that the collegiate athlete landscape would be better served for it. Thanks for listening to my Dre Talk, and have a great evening.